Hey everybody. Over the last year, I have been following what appears to be a pattern of unethical practices and censorship by the leftist big tech cartel. As a result, I did a video on March of 2018 entitled The Legal Controversies Surrounding Social Media Companies, where I outlined concerns with YouTube and Google. In my August 2018 video, Was the Adpocalpyse a Lie?, I presented evidence that Google and YouTube didn't respond to the adpocalypse, but in fact fraudulently created it. Then in mid-December of 2018, I called out Google's subsidiary YouTube for wrongfully deplatforming Gavin McInnes, adding my voice to the many who spoke out against this unethical act, which led to Gavin's YouTube channel being reinstated. Then a few days later in December 2018, I demonstrated that not only did Google CEO Sundar Pichai lie to Congress, but that lie constituted a crime, and asked whether or not he would be held accountable for his dishonesty to the American people. Now, after studying Google and reviewing others' work for over a year, my research forces me now to ask the question, is Google's entire empire built on fraud? This video, by incorporating verifiable evidence and observable reality, seeks to answer that question. Let's get started with Investopedia. According to Investopedia, the bulk of Google's $110 billion revenue in 2017 came from its proprietary advertising service, Google AdWords. Now, this isn't just true of 2017, but much of Google's income throughout its entire existence has been based on advertising revenue, and this is relatively common knowledge. However, what's not commonly known outside the advertising industry by the public at large is how Google runs its ad business. WordStream made this handy infographic called, How Does the AdWords Auction Work? Well, according to them, basically they bid on words like insurance, loans, and mortgage, and of course they earn 97% of its revenue off of these AdWords. And then it all starts, of course, with a query according to the infographic. But if we scroll down, we kind of know a little bit about this. But let's talk about what most people don't know. How does Google determine which ad is shown where? Well, it's based on ad rank. And so ad rank is a simple formula. It's ad rank equals CPC bid times the quality score. Now, the CPC bid is your maximum bid. In other words, if you're an advertiser, you bid a certain amount of money, they take that money, they apply the quality score, and that determines your ad rank. So let's break it down. So here's 4 advertisers. Advertiser 1 bids $2, but it has a 10 quality score, so it's in the first position. Advertiser number 4 has bid 4 times amount at $8, but the quality score is only 1. So 8 times 1 is $8, or an ad rank of 8, whereas advertiser number 1, 2 times 10 is 20, so that ad rank is 20. It's higher. It's in the number 1 position. Now, think about that for a moment. Now, not only does this auction determine whether or not an ad is placed, it also determines the ad placement. So with that in mind, what's a quality score? So I couldn't actually find a definition of quality score. However, Google does talk about it in its AdSense support pages, and it specifically states, because the ad auction ranks advertisers based on their bids and quality score, it assigns the ad unit to the advertisers who value it the most. The winning ads are therefore from the advertisers who are willing to pay the most. Now remember that. In other words, the winning bid, according to Google, right here in its support pages, is the bidder who pays the most. And the quality score based approach ensures good user experience. Okay, that makes sense. Let's scroll down and see what else it says. It says, because ads are then ranked by ad rank, an advertiser with a low CPC bid but a high quality score may win the auction against another competitor whose CPC bid is higher but who has ad creatives that pose poor user experience and are not likely to be clicked. Quality score is a measure of how useful an ad is to the people who see it and its relevancy. So here's my concern. Google's support pages for AdSense say that the highest bid wins. Then when you scroll down, they admit that's a lie. Google's AdSense support page actually internally contradicts itself. Now, in addition to this, there's been many questions about the transparency of Google's auction and bidding process. So in response, Google created Auction Insights. And according to Google's support pages, the Auction Insights report lets you compare your performance with other advertisers who are participating in the same auctions you are. This information can help you make strategic decisions about bidding and budgeting by showing you where you're succeeding and where you may be missing opportunities for improved performance. The Auction Insights report is available for both search and shopping campaigns. But what's interesting is when you scroll down, they have a note at the bottom, and it says, the other advertisers' metrics shown are based only on instances where your ads were also estimated to be eligible to appear. This report won't reveal the actual keywords, quality, bids, or settings from your campaigns, and it won't give you insight into the same information for others. All right, so here's the thing that you need to pay attention to. The metrics shown in the Auctions Insight report only shows information based on ads that were eligible to appear in Google's estimation. This is not actual information, okay? Now, Google claims this report allows you to compare your bids with others who participate in the same auctions you are. Then they admit that this is not true. It's only an estimate of eligible ads, not the actual auctions. They go on to admit that it doesn't reveal any actual information about your competitors or their bids in the auctions that you actually participate in. Just as importantly, it also doesn't reveal anything about auctions you enter where Google arbitrarily determines your ads aren't eligible. Basically, Google admits that Auction Insights is merely a masturbation tool and isn't the real thing. It's smoke and mirrors. Now, let's shift gears to YouTube. According to new media rock stars, click it or skip it, does YouTube advertising actually work? They state, grim statistics are coming to light for Facebook and Twitter in regards to the efficacy of advertising on those sites. The ads don't work. Time magazine just offered up an article showing that despite Facebook netting $7 billion in advertising revenue last year, and this article was written in 2014, so they're talking about 2013, 62% of the 17,000 people interviewed by Gallup said that social media had no effect on their purchasing whatsoever, and only 5% said they heavily use social media as a purchasing source. Viewers have become desensitized or purposefully determined to block out advertisements and content that doesn't interest them or that they find intrusive. Study after study confirms that click-through rates on internet ads are just 0.01%, and that 4 out of 5 users, 80%, have never even bought a product because of a Facebook ad. Does advertising work on YouTube? Now, they kind of talk about it a little bit, they lead up to it, but then they jump to this section here. Fortunately, the good folks at YouTube were able to point us to a couple of studies that could answer our questions, as well as point out that YouTube wasn't observed with that initial Gallup study. According to YouTube's data, the TrueView works, and TrueView is one of their ad options that they have. Whatever the case, as far as social media goes, so far, YouTube looks to be an advertiser's best bet. And so based on these studies, it sounds like YouTube is a safe bet, until you realize that Google has been bribing academics to write positive research papers on its products. According to CNBC, Google has been paying academic researchers who write favorable papers, report says. Now, here's the concern. How can you trust the academic papers and studies about Google if Google is the one commissioning and funding the research? This is an inherent conflict of interest and confirmation bias to misrepresent Google in a positive light. Now, I think it's time that we discuss traffic metrics in general. According to Zero Hedge, everything is fake. Ex-Reddit CEO confirms internet traffic metrics are bullshit. It's all true. Everything is fake, tweeted former Reddit CEO Ellen Pao regarding a Wednesday New York Magazine article which reveals the internet traffic metrics from some of the largest tech companies are overstated or fabricated. In other words, they're bullshit. Their words, not mine. Powers responding to a tweet by the Washington Post's Aram Zucker, quoting the following segment of the article. Not even Facebook, the world's greatest data gathering organization, seems to be able to produce genuine figures. In October, small advertisers filed suit against the social media giant, accusing it of covering up for a year its significant overstatements of time users spent watching videos on the platform. By 60 to 80%, Facebook says. By 150 to 900%, the plaintiffs say. According to an exhaustive list at Marketing Land, over the past 2 years, Facebook has admitted to misreporting the reach of posts on Facebook pages in 2 different ways: the rate at which viewers complete ad videos, the average time spent reading its instant articles, the amount of referral traffic from Facebook to external sites, and the number of views that videos receive via Facebook's mobile site, and the number of video views in instant articles. It's all true. Everything is fake, tweeted Pao, adding, Also, mobile user counts are fake. No one has figured out how to count logged out mobile users, as I learned at Reddit. Every time someone switches cell towers, it looks like another user and inflates company user metrics. So, what's the takeaway here? Well, the reality is, if traffic metrics are fake, then that means that how Google assigns value to AdWords it places for auction is based on inherently overstated data. The effect, if this is true, that Google is potentially mischaracterizing certain AdWords as more valuable based on overstated and flawed traffic metrics rather than objective empirical measurements. So, with that in mind, what is an auction? Well, according to uslegal.com, a sale by auction is a public sale where various intending buyers offer bids for the goods and try to outbid each other. Ultimately, the goods are sold to the highest bidder. An auction sale is complete when the auctioneer announces its completion by the fall of the hammer or another customary manner. So really the takeaway is this, it's very, very basic. It's a sale in which goods are sold to the highest bidder and bidders try to outbid each other. Then the auctioneer announces the completion when the auction is over. Now, how does this differ from Google's AdWords auction? Well, first and foremost, there's no transparency in Google's auction. Google never discloses when the auction starts or stops. It never discloses the identity of the other bidders. Not only that, it never discloses the amount the other bidders bid. And in addition to that, which keywords the other bidders bid on. Each keyword appears to be a separate auction. It also doesn't disclose the quality score of each bid. The quality score. This is an arbitrary decision by Google and controls the auction outcome, not the bids. So, what are the auction outcomes? Let's talk about them. The lowest bidder is guaranteed to win if their quality score is higher. In other words, if Google likes the ad or the advertiser, they win. The highest bidder is guaranteed to lose if their quality score is lower. In other words, if Google doesn't like the ad or they don't like the advertiser. Auction winners always get ad placement and prime placement positions for maximum visibility. The losers either get their ads rejected or they potentially overpay for far less visibility. Now, this becomes even more concerning when one considers that legal scholars have been warning about online auction fraud since early 2000. James Snyder of the Indiana University School of Law outlines these concerns in his Federal Communications Law Journal article from year 2000. Specifically, he states, fraudulent practices can occur during two distinct phases of the online auction process. First, the fraud can take place during the actual bidding process. Two types of fraud at this stage are the bid shielding and the bid shilling. Second, the fraud can occur after the auction is ended with the buyer having made a winning bid. All right? Now, when they talk about this, we're going to skip the bidding process for a second, and we're going to jump down to fraud after the close of auction. Another form of post-auction fraud occurs when the high bidder mails payment to the seller only to have the seller either send different merchandise or merchandise of lower quality to the bidder. While the bidder receives some merchandise, the goods the consumer receives are usually of such poor quality that the purchase is virtually worthless. What are the takeaways here? Fraud can occur during the bidding process or after the auction is ended. Because Google's AdWords auctions have no transparency, the bidding process fraud is an extreme concern. Further, Google's quality score controls the auction, not the bids. I'm concerned that this calls the credibility of the entire auction into question. Further, after the Google AdWords auction ends, the highest bidder can end up overpaying for lower value ad positioning. According to this law journal, that's also fraud. Further, according to the FBI, Google's misrepresentation of its AdWords auctions could potentially be internet auction fraud, which is a federal crime. According to them, internet auction fraud involves schemes attributable to the misrepresentation of a product advertised for sale through an internet auction site or the non-delivery of products purchased through an internet auction site. For example, I make the largest bid on an AdWords auction, yet I get something of lesser value. According to the FBI and the law journal I just cited, that's internet auction fraud, and it's a crime. So if you're an advertiser, what can you do? Well, it turns out that the San Jose, California Police Department actually has answers for you. Basically, what they say is how you report online auction fraud is, number one, you file a complaint with the online auction company, which in this case would be Google. Secondly, you notify your local and state law enforcement officials. And then in addition to that, you notify law enforcement officials in the perpetrator's town or state. Then you file a complaint with the Better Business Bureau in the seller's area. Then you fill out the online complaint form at www.fraud.org or call the fraud hotline at 1-800-876-7060 from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. In addition to that, you file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission, the Bureau of Consumer Protection, at www.consumer.gov/sentinel/. Then you file a complaint with the Internet Fraud Complaint Center, a partnership between the National White Collar Crime Center, the NW3C, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, at www.ifccfbi.gov/index.asp. Now, for anybody concerned about being victims of online auction fraud, you can go to the National Consumers League or www.nclnet.org, or you can talk to the National Fraud Information Center at www.fraud.org, or you can talk to the Federal Trade Commission at www.ftc.gov. You can also contact the Consumer Sentinel at www.consumer.gov/sentinel/. And of course, the National White Collar Crime Center at www.nw3c.org, or you can contact the United States Department of Justice at www.internetfraud.usdoj.gov. So obviously the content of this video has raised some serious concerns. And first of which is that the Google AdWords auction is not an auction because the highest bidder is not guaranteed to win. Google referring to its AdWords sale as an auction is a gross misrepresentation of what's actually going on. The quality score controls which advertiser wins, not the bid amount. Google offers no transparency during the bidding process. Google offers no transparency regarding its quality score. Google itself admits that winning bidders can and do receive lower quality merchandise in the form of lesser valued ad placement or no ad placement at all. And because Google doesn't disclose the mechanics of its quality score, and the quality score and not the bidding process controls the auction, this appears to be on its face to be fraud. Now, Google makes the majority of its money off of AdWords auctions. And as you can see from the information I've uncovered, it appears that Google has built its entire empire on internet auction fraud, which in the United States, according to the FBI, is a federal crime. Now, regardless of whether you support Google's practices or oppose them, this video should make it clear. The United States government needs to start an investigation into Google's AdWords auctions and what may be the largest criminal fraud in Earth's history. I'm DDJ, and this has been your dose of misandry today.